Welcome to Camera Shake Podcast, episode 76. And before we get into it, I know, I got it right. 76, first time. But before we get into it, let me just remind you that if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, you might as well hop over to youtube.com/Camera Shake, where you can not only hear our sultry voices, but see our lovely faces in full Technicolor as well. Now, we've got another brilliant guest on the show today. It is none other than one of the greatest innovative minds in the photographic industry, the inventor of the Platypod and the Platyball. Give it up for Mr. Larry Tiefenbrunn. Larry, how are you today?
Hi, Larry.
Fine, thank you. How are you doing? Nice, and it's quite an honor to be on your show. You've had such illustrious guests in the past. I'm very humbled to be here.
Oh.
Well, we're very grateful for you to come on our show because we had a fortunate run-in with the Platypod and the Platyball.
Yes, it's
actually
true. Yeah.
But before we tell you all about that, let me just ask you, because I know that you're a very well-versed portrait, macro travel photographer and also product photographer, but you're also a pediatrician.
Yes, that's true. But I became a photographer before I became a physician. I started photography in my early teens. Basically self-taught, attended a few courses as well. But this has been my passion for, happy to say, over 45 years.
I'm just wondering how you combine all these things in a 24-hour day. Like, how's that even possible? You know?
I don't walk in between things. I run.
Right. So, Larry, let's talk about. Actually, I tell you what. Let's talk about the Platypod to start with, because we came across the Platypod for the first time when we were out in the wild with David Williams
and Bigfoot.
And Bigfoot. Yeah. It was us, Dave, and Bigfoot. Apparently, according to him.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I think he's lying.
Look, there were strange noises in the woods. That's all I'm saying.
It might have been Dave in costume. He's been known to do that with some very large feet.
And for those of you who are following this this podcast, if you recall, a few weeks ago we went to Wales to meet Dave in his van. And so the first thing I noticed was that he was making use of your Platypod by using it in the ceiling. It's got it like screwed into the ceiling of his van. And what it does is it allows him to be extremely flexible with lots of different things that he can screw in and hang off the ceiling, cameras, GoPros, microphones, all sorts of different stuff, which I found stunning. It's such a good idea.
Well, that Dave purchased that van, completely gutted it himself, and completely built it out from just the plywood to begin with and everything. So he's got it all fitted out to get all kinds of different view. And Platypod helps him in that capability, because we are able to take a camera and attach it to almost anything with tremendous support and tremendous strength. This is not a toy. This is a heavy-duty piece of equipment meant to hold many pounds of camera equipment. We like to think of it as kind of a Swiss Army knife for photography.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the first things that I really felt was when I got to hold the Platypod and also the Platyballs, how solid these things actually are. I mean, they really are no toys. I mean, they're very heavy duty.
Far more solid than anything I own.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
by a long stretch. But
on our Platypod, on the Platypod Max, I was actually able to take a ball head and put it off sideways, and we were able to hang 300 pounds off of that sideways without being able to dislodge the bolt. Yeah. The bolt's made out of titanium, and it's welded right through our plate. It really cannot be dislodged.
For those of our listeners who are listening to the podcast, let's just give them a bit of a run through and describe what the Platypod actually is.
All right, so I'll go back to our story, which starts in Utah at Bryce Canyon. My wife and I were taking a hike about 1,000 feet down into the canyon, which is about 300 meters or so down into the canyon, which was all fine. And I had my camera bag all set up, and I took a travel tripod with me that I had slung off a belt. And we were taking, pictures of ourselves, really nice pictures with tremendous depth of field, a little bit longer exposure with some of them. But then hiking back up from the canyon, that extra 5 or 6 pounds of that tripod was very, very difficult. So when I got home, I wanted to look for a tripod that could handle the weight that I could easily put on a rock or a tree or something like that, and be able to still handle a nice, 70 to 200 millimeter 2.8 lens on a camera. What I had at the time was, I'm not going to name the brand, but you're all familiar with those tripods that kind of bend and twist. And well, the problem is when you put them down, you have something heavy duty on them. After the first month or two of use, yes, it bends and twists as you're using it and falls right over. So I was looking for a flat tripod and I couldn't find one. I looked at the largest store in the United States, B&H Photo, and they must have had 250 to 300 different brands of compact tripods. They were all rated for under 3 to 6 pounds, and the most heavy duty of them would take up the space of a long telephoto lens, which, as you and I know, you can't afford to waste space in your camera bag. Every square centimeter, cubic centimeter is worth something. So that non-existent, I scratched out a design for a flat aluminum plate with a bolt in it. The bolt was originally supposed to be stainless steel. I can tell you something interesting about that, why we didn't go with stainless steel. And I have a friend who is in the metals business. He actually contracts and builds automobile parts in factories throughout the world. I showed him this. He said it's a simple design. He thought it was a joke. He never thought it really would amount to much of anything. And we made the first Platypod, which was just a very simple plate with 2 bolts in it. We tried doing the stainless steel, and then when we tried to black anodize it, we found that the stainless steel melted in anodization solution. You have to use a non-ferrous substance in it, so titanium it was the right material to go with, and that's why we have a titanium bolt in there. And we came out with the Platypod, which was able to handle just about any tripod head out on the market, because as you well know, almost every tripod head, professional tripod head certainly, has the same 3/8 inch, 16 threads per inch socket in it. So it will go on our plate nicely with just about any tripod head. And this really will handle just about any tripod head on the market. And one of the features of our Platypod Max, we have a box here that holds some spikes. And if you don't want the box there, say you have a tremendous head, some of the architectural heads, I know the Arca, the big $1,500 cubic head, will not fit on this. So you can just take this, twist it, pop it off, and now you'll fit any tripod head on here. So that's our larger model. It's called the Platypod Max. It's the size of an iPad mini. And we have a smaller one called the Platypod Ultra. And this will handle smaller cameras with smaller lenses. By that, I mean any camera with a lens under 900 grams can go nicely on the Platypod Ultra, unless you're on soft sand or mud or soft grass, in which case I would go with the larger model because you don't want your equipment to move over sideways.
What gave you the initial idea for the design?
Well, very simple question and a very good question. Thank you. Is I wanted something that basically wouldn't take up much space in the camera bag. It wouldn't displace any other equipment. And going flat allowed you to do that. In fact, this one I can take and I can slip into my pant pocket with no problem. So it easily fits in the side pocket of a camera bag. Or if you want to hang it off of a camera bag, we have these little carabiners that just let you take this and clip it off your backpack or your belt and just hang it on the outside, even with small ball head on there. That's very convenient. So the idea was not to displace other equipment with it. And the name Platypod really says what it's about. It comes from the Greek platy, which is flat, and podos, which is a foot, and it's essentially a flat foot with a sort of a round front that's reminiscent of the duckbill platypus. So hence Platypod.
So, Larry, just obviously, many of our listeners are only listening on Apple Podcasts, for example, right now, and can't
they're missing
see
so much. They should go to YouTube and hit subscribe for your wonderful show and bring this out to so many more people. Subscribe and like. Pound that button, guys.
Such great advice. Everybody, you should listen to Larry. He knows what he's talking about.
Exactly.
But obviously, those people who are, old school and, listening on Apple Podcast, Tommy, I'm specifically thinking of you right now. Yep, Tommy, I know you're in the car. Don't crash, my friend. Be careful.
Yeah.
Can you give us a couple of real world examples where a photographer might use the Platypod right now, just so they can really picture it in their mind as to where they would be using it?
Okay, I'll do that verbally first. And if you're interested, I have some beautiful photographs to share, which really illustrate the power of the Platypod and the versatility of what it can do. So first of all, for landscape and travel photography, it is unbeatable. I have a friend who was going on a trip to Patagonia. So that's a national park. I think it's in southern Chile or on the border of Chile and Argentina. And he was going to be backpacking through there for 5 days. And he was going to take a heavy-duty tripod with him. He was bringing a 30-pound, or I guess about 13, 14-kilo pack with him. And I'm sorry, it's over 15 kilos, correct? So I suggested him, you know what? Take a Platypod instead. Leave your tripod legs at home. Take the tripod head that you want to use with you, and let's see how you do. He said he took over 600 different images, and in those 5 days, there were only 2 times where he missed having a tripod with him.
Wow.
Now, if you're doing travel photography, you will actually get more use out of a Platypod than you would out of a tripod, because there are so many places that do not allow tripod. We use the term the tripod police. If you try to go into a museum in America, it's the Smithsonian Museums is classic. Grand Central Station in New York. Try to go up to the Empire State Buildings. Tripods are not allowed, theoretically, because they're a tripping hazard, and to somewhat the authorities see it as a professional tool. And if you're a professional, they want you signing up for a commercial license to be doing your shoot. But almost no one, I think in the last 4 or 5 years, we've heard of maybe 2 cases where someone was pushed off because of a Platypod. Otherwise, the guards will come right up to you, say, what's that? What are you doing? Oh, that's cool. All right, go on, and leave you alone. So for travel, Platypod is much more useful than a tripod. And if you're walking about and don't want to take the extra weight and don't want to waste the space, this is unbeatable. The place this year that we found to be very, very, where Platypods are extremely useful is now in macro, product, and food photography. What we've done is we've added to the Platypod family what we call the Platypod Goosenecks. I'll show you this. And for those on audio, imagine just a gooseneck that's used on a lamp that easily bends back and forth. Our gooseneck has a 1/4 inch bolt at one end, and it has a 1/4 inch socket at the other end. And it also comes with what's known as a cross nut adapter, a male to male 1/4 inch bolt, which then will adapt the female end to male. So you can really go any direction you want to. But what's so brilliant about these goosenecks, unlike others that were on the market, is because it's male one end, female the other end, they're stackable. So you can put them together double length. And I say, Larry, what can I do with a gooseneck? Well, use your imagination a little bit here. You take one gooseneck, put it in one of the screw holes on a Platypod. You take a second gooseneck and put it on another one. And then perhaps, well, you know what? I've got something assembled right over here. Let's put that together. Okay. and I've done this on our smaller Platypod for those of you who are listening. Now you put a small torch light onto one of the goosenecks. I have a light here made by company Lytra, which is now being discontinued. We're actually running a clearance sale on our last Lytra units. We're going to be converting over to a different company called Luma. But anyway, you put that on one side. On the second side, I have another accessory that we have that's called the Platypod Mini Super Clamp, and it's essentially a little crab clamp. And it goes from closed with some nice adjustable rubber tips to completely open about 1.5 inches. What's that, about 5 centimeters, 6 centimeters? Okay. And now you can hold all kinds of things with this. You can hold mirrors, you can hold reflecting cards. And in this little example that I have the crab clamp, the super clamp, holding a white card. I've got the torch bouncing off the white card. Now I've got a reflector card, and I can cast light on a miniature object that's beautiful and soft. Now, this is just for those of you watching on YouTube. This is on low power, medium power, high power. These torches are extremely, extremely bright. And if we'll show you later, if you'd like, in some of the slides, what kind of images you can do with that. So again, the Platypod has tremendous versatility. You can use it in so many different situations. It can be used in portraiture. It can be used for lighting. Because the Platypod has countersunk screw holes on it, imagine you can now take this, you can screw it onto Dave Williams' van inside, or you can screw it onto a plank, a wall, a ceiling. It also has strap holding arms, and we have several straps that we that actually one of them comes with this smaller Platypod Ultra, and another one is in our accessory kit. And now you can strap this around an object like a tree or a telephone pole, and you can mount your camera onto that for support. Let's say you want to do a time lapse, mount it up high on a tree where no one will bother it. We've had people put this in the wild with remotes on them. Pocket Wizard makes a very nice long distance remote. I think I have in our picture collection a photo done by Scott Bourne of an eagle's nest where he's just a meter or two away from the nest, and he's operating off from a blind and shooting pictures of a family of eagles unbothered by a human being in the scene. So again, with imagination, there's lots we can do. Show you another thing for lighting. With our accessory kit, we have a what's known as a Spigot Adapter. It's a 3-inch long stick, I guess, and you can simply mount that onto the Platypod. And now you can put on an umbrella adapter on that. You can mount a monolight on this. Let's say you're taking photos at a wedding, and you want to backlight the bride's dress with a rim light. You don't want to have to start dragging around light stands. You just take this, put a monolight on here, put it on the floor behind the bride. You've got a remote on the light, and fire away. It's the best way to do background lighting from a ground level, and nothing gets lowered down. You'll see a lot done on low angle photography, and nothing gets lower than this because it's 5 millimeters.
See, what I love about this product is that it solves so many problems. You know, just to give you like an example as to how we witnessed this being used out in the wild was when we were staying out on the prairie, well, out in the forest,
the prairie
with Dave. We decided to hook up a wildlife, like a camera trap, because we wanted to see what wildlife was around our campsite. And so he just basically strapped one of those, strapped a platypod to a tree, hooked a wildlife camera onto it. That was it.
Yeah.
And likewise, he's got a platypod, built into his van, which holds a GoPro, on one of the goosenecks. And it's brilliant. You can move it around. You can change the angles. It takes literally seconds to change just about anything. It's so
if you
versatile.
think about it, camera straps are nice, bags are nice, but how many products are there out there which will actually get you to change your perspective, change your lighting, think differently. Because you all know, everybody taking photos from this height, you're going to get the same photo as everybody else. But you put it high up on a tree or you put it on the ground, you're going to get much more interesting photos that way. So it gets you to think differently. There's a beautiful image behind me. I have this in the slideshow also. This was taken by famous photographer Rick Salmon. I think Rick has authored about 45 books on photography. He was in China and went into this place where this woman was working at a loom, and initially took the same photos as everyone else at eye height, and that said, I'll do something different. And he set his platypod on the floor under the loom, and there's so much that can be spoken about an image like this, as far as the angles here, the Rembrandt style lighting on the woman's face, the leading lines going into it, but you could not get that image from anywhere else but underneath that loom. So just to think differently about your photography and think differently about the views that you're obtaining, it changes everything.
And it's also such a time saver. One of the things that Nick and me have gotten into throughout the pandemic, really, was automotive photography, because we weren't really, throughout the lockdowns over here in the UK, we couldn't really shoot other people, or photograph other people, I should say. And so, we thought, well, we start photographing cars because that was okay. And so one of the things that really used to drive me crazy was when, we basically take low angle shots of cars all of the time. And with our existing tripod system, it's just such a hassle. You got to take the center column out, flip it around, bring the thing down, bend the, oh my God. And it takes forever. And then, if something's not quite right, it just takes forever to change just the smallest little bit. So I think immediately when I saw the Platypod, I kind of thought, well, this would solve so many of our issues. This is like a really useful thing.
It's going in my basket.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
Damn straight.
Well, what's cool about it, by the way, also people, we listen to the customers, and from our first model to this one, they said to us, well, you know what, can I put it on my tripod? And I said, why would you want to do that? Because I would never really used it like that. They said, well, just to stow it there. So I said, okay, we'll put a 3/8 inch hole on there. You can then stow this on your tripod. Now, when you're ready to go shoot ground level, you spin the entire setup with the ball head on here, the camera on top, and just imagine you take this, you just unwind it, put it down on the ground, and you don't have to do that center column flip like you would have, done in the past.
Yeah. One thing that just strikes me is obviously the underside is flat metal. Is there any way to secure it? And what I mean by that is, if you're also on a slippery surface, let's say, and you just want to make a small adjustment to the ball head, I guess you're potentially going to.
I knew you were going to ask that question. I knew you were going to ask that question.
Right there.
I'm prepared for you. We've done enough photography shows and we've heard the questions, so it's a cheat. I know. All right, say you're on rock. Okay, first of all, two problems with rock or concrete. There's some jiggle there. That's an issue. Also, it's going to slide right off if there's any angle to it. So both our Platypod models come with the same set of 4 spikes, rather sharp spikes. If they're too sharp for you, just take a file and you can file them down. But now with the spikes, you can put them onto rock or concrete and it will not slip. And then this is the smaller one, but the same thing happens with the Platypod Max. The spikes are stored right on board on this magnetic holder that I had removed before. The Ultra comes with spikes in a little wallet, but they're exactly the same spikes and they are interchangeable. So now you just take a tripod head and you mount it onto this. We have this little Benro ball head that we like a lot. And now you can just take your camera, and this gives you a nice idea of how this is used. Now, when you can use three spikes, and therefore it is truly a tripod, but certain situations you're going to want 4. So we've got 4 over here. I'm just Just balancing that.
It would be a
Okay,
quadrupod.
that's nice. And then they can be locked in with these little round nuts that we have on top over here. And then you just take your camera, and I recommend having an Arca plate. This is an L bracket, an Arca style L bracket for quick release. Just mount it on here, and now you're
brilliant.
Good to shoot your images. We just have come out with our new accessory kit. We just recently revised our accessory kit. We now have the world's first round Arca plate.
Ooh.
Have you seen this yet?
I haven't seen that particular one.
Oh, okay. So this is really cool. So now, usually when you have an Arca plate like this one, you got to get underneath the plate, let's say, to mount it onto your camera. Now, this camera has an L bracket array, but it happens to have some 1/4-inch screws just to demonstrate this. So you got to take this D-ring, you fumble around with it, you try to tighten that. Sometimes you'll need a coin or an Allen wrench to really get it tight, or if it hurts your fingers a little bit, you can tighten like that, and that's how you would put that on. So I thought that was a little bit awkward. So I was looking to see if there was a round disc that would do that you wouldn't have to fumble with everything like that. So now this is just a solid piece, stainless steel core. So it's really nice and strong. Now you just get it through half a thread, spin it on, and it's in place. And this will fit any Arca compatible quick release plate. Now, it's really nice. I use these a lot for, a lot of people are doing iPhone photography now. So this is really great. You can go on any iPhone holder. We have one here from Square Jellyfish that we offer on our website. And same concept. You just spin that in here, put this on, and now you can mount this on any tripod head that has an Arca compatible clamp.
I just paid off my credit card, so I'm good to go. There's lots of little bits.
What I love about what I love about all this is
can I help your viewers a little bit? And we'll mention this at the end of the show as well. Till the end of October, we're offering a special promo code for your followers. It's going to be without any spaces, Shake 15. Okay.
Way.
Shake 15 will get 15% off all of our main products on Platypod, and doesn't include the bundles and some of the specialty products, like we have some lights from Luma Cube and all that, but it will help for our main products of Platypod Max, our accessory kits and all that. So that might help the credit card a little bit as well. We should mention it at the end of the show one more time.
Can I ask, is that open to me and Kay as well? Please?
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Pretty please. Excellent.
Absolutely, gentlemen.
We'll get on there straight away.
You've been so kind. Why not?
Thank you. And just one thing I just want to mention, just while Larry was demonstrating the spikes for the plate. So those listening on Apple right now, Larry actually lifted it up to probably beyond the 45-degree angle, and it looked rock solid.
I would say it's safe to about 45 degrees. I don't know if I would go that much, because then you get the weight of the camera at risk of flipping backwards. So yeah.
You know what I love about all of your ideas there is that you've literally looked at a problem, and then you sort of engineered your way out of it. Yeah. Is that something you've always done?
Well, as a physician, I'm a problem solver. That's what I do. But particularly here, number one, I'm a photographer, and anything I invent, I pretty much invent for my own use as well. I think I'm thinking along the lines, and I do all kinds of photography, including portraiture and as you said, product photography. So I think about, where would I find a need? Where could I make my life easier? And what are things that are really not made elsewhere? I'm not looking to reproduce. For example, we're not about to make tripod legs. We can talk about the tripod heads in a few minutes. We're not about to make tripod legs because I don't see much improvement happening on a tripod leg. But these are things that really are not out there. They're unique. Yeah. We have 3 patents already on our products, and we have 3 more that are pending.
If you can invent tripod legs that will allow me not to hurt the skin of my hands every time I take them apart and put it back together. I'd be so grateful.
Ergonomics are very important to me. I mean, everything that we make has nice rounded bullnose, smooth edges. It's not going to cut into your camera bag or ruin other equipment. I mean, you could put your iPad right next to this. The back is silky smooth over here, and it will be fully protected. There's nothing in here that's going to break something else. And again, that idea will carry forth into the Platyball when we get to talk about that.
Yeah. But this really is like the Swiss Army knife of tripods. I mean, if you really think about it, all the different things you could do with it, all the different accessories that you can use in it, the different scenarios and situations that you can use it in. I mean, it's mind blowing, really.
Yeah, I
Would you like
the
to
idea
run quickly through a few photos?
Sure, absolutely.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
If it gets boring, please stop me, but I don't think it will. You ready?
Okay, let's go.
Okay, so this is our family of products. We call it the Platypod ecosystem. You can go to our website and learn all about that. Samantha Kennedy is a photographer in Long Island. Samantha gets up very early in the morning because she likes to take beautiful images at sunrise. Sunset on the East Coast of the United States is really not worth very much because it goes over where I live in New Jersey, which is really, if you've ever seen New Jersey, we're not that interesting. But Samantha, for example, the photo on the right shows how dark it really was when she was taking this image. She told me the water was absolutely still. This is a 20-second long exposure.
Wow.
Yet everything on here is just tack sharp. And she had her Platypod and Platyball set up. Samantha's been a beta tester for us for the Platyball project, and just does amazing imagery. Joe Pellicone likes to, also from Long Island, New York, likes to photograph diners, especially in the evening. And as you know from when you were a child, when you are looking at something from a low angle, everything looks more bold, more beautiful. So Joe just puts his camera on the ground on a Platypod and gets these long exposures at night. For wedding photography, Bob Davis is a very well-known instructor. He's always speaks at WPPI in Las Vegas, and he's in the Chicago area. Very well-accomplished wedding photographer. So he mounted his camera, as you can see on the right, with a Pocket Wizard remote behind the altar. Now you have this image of everything going on at this wedding ceremony without interfering with the ceremony and having a photographer stand back there. He's just standing off to the side and firing off shots. And since he's using a super wide lens focused probably around where the bride is, everything is in focus in this shot without him having to be up there. Another wedding shot, the very well-known shot from the aisle. Now you don't have to have a tripod sitting in the back of the room for people to trip over. You take this rig, slip it under a chair, pull it out as the bride is walking down, get your shots, and from a perfect angle. Nighttime photography. Hilmar Smith is an ambassador for Platypod. If you don't know Hilmar's work, you should definitely look at her website. She does a lot of creative imagery, but also she loves Disney World. She lives about 20 minutes from Disney World and often goes there and is just taking pictures here nighttime of fireworks, and just has the Platypod, set on top of a railing and can get this, these beautiful shots. Deb Sandage is a Nikon ambassador. She took this from her home, just had a Platypod with a gimbal head set near her back window and got this shot. And just see how tack sharp everything is of this bird, early bird catching the worms. This is yours truly, done at the Palisades in upstate New Jersey. And again, just using the Platypod with the new Platyball, which I was testing out as well to get this image. Just showing you, just talking photographically about the shot. What interested me is the layers of depth that you have here. The little trees, branches in the front, going into these dark black cliffs, going on to the tree filled cliffs, then into the water, then the other side of the river, then the clouds behind. You have about 7 layers of imagery here to add to the depth of the image. Eric Kuna, Scott, the famous Scott Kelby, has Eric Kuna as his sidekick on his podcast known as The Grid. It appears weekly. And Eric is known as the Rocket Man. He's actually been contracted by SpaceX, by Elon Musk's group, to take images at Cape Canaveral when they have rocket launches. And he was trying to be a little bit lyrical by putting in the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars here and putting his camera low down on the ground so he could catch the toy in the foreground as well as the real rocket shot in the background. My friend and mentor, Shiv Verma, is a New England photographer and instructor, went on safari, and to have his camera always at hand, he strapped one camera onto each arm. He had this bench all to himself, one camera onto each arm of his safari vehicle, and could quickly shift over and get a stable image using long telephoto lenses on safari. This is another image from Shiv. I could go on and on talking about the compositional elements of this image of a wildebeest stampede going across a river, wildebeest migration, I should say. This was the photo I was speaking about before from Scott Bourne, and you can see the eagles. And I believe he was less than a meter away from the first eagle with a remote, so he's not there to bother the birds. And you could get this basically right in the family den or living room of this eagle family. Skip Cohen, my CMO, my marketing officer, and also former president of Hasselblad America, was taking this image with a lens ball. And Platypod's a great way to catch a lens ball into an image. Platypod can be used with a gimbal style head, as you saw before from Deb Sandage. Bob Coates used it to get this beautiful, beautiful image of an osprey. And again, there's so much we can go on and on talking about composition. If you have questions later, we can talk about this, but you can talk about S-curves, diagonals, foreground, middle ground, background. I mean, you could teach a photography lesson on composition from an image like this. Adam Raynoff, who is a photographer who likes to go to Costa Rica and take images of exotic birds, needs to be, again, well hidden from his subjects on the ground. But rather than trying to balance a camera with a long lens on this on the ground, the Platypod allows him to prop it up and easily do his photography. Moose Peterson, same concept. This was done in his backyard. And this over at a beach. And American oyster, sea oyster bird or something. Moose would know the names better than I would. Scott Kelby likes to do images of churches when he's traveling, just puts the camera on the floor. He tries to be the first in or the last out of the church so that there are almost no people there, and can get a beautiful shot like this from a very low angle with a wide angle lens. And he just did this with a Platypod Ultra with his camera angled back and up. Another image by Scott Kelby. Hilmar Smith, who we spoke about before, was demonstrating how you can use a Platypod. Now, you can't stick a tripod inside a microwave oven to get this view of her son. And please don't turn on the microwave while the Platypod and camera are in there. And the oven should be cool. We have to make these disclaimers. You never know what people are going to try. But she got these images, and she uses her own children as her subjects for these very creative images. Just to demonstrate a waterfall taken with a Platypod from a low angle, and this waterfall was only 6 inches high, but taken from a low angle, it looks magnificent.
Incredible.
Bob Coates, another Platypod ambassador, likes to delve into infrared photography, and you can see his setup over here, some other images here. Lizzie Gadd, I don't know if you've ever interviewed Lizzie.
No.
Not yet.
If you haven't, you should get her on the show. Lizzie's amazing. She's a young photographer from the Vancouver area of Canada. And Lizzie does landscape self-portraiture. So she'll dress up in a lovely dress. She'll set her camera out on an intervalometer, taking an image every 2 seconds. And then she just walks out into the scene and you get something like that. If your viewers have not seen Lizzie's site, look up Lizzie Gadd, and she's got a magnificent website, just beautiful images, many of them done just like this. And here's another image of Lizzie. Lizzie is close friends with Chris Andres. Here, Lizzie was the model for this image where the platypod was just set on the ice, and she just walked out into the scene of this frozen lake. Kelly LaRox is a London photographer, showing how you can do iPhone photography using your platypod to stabilize the image. You can talk about this image, leading lines, throwing motion in the picture. But what gets this picture to work is that the static structures are tack sharp. The people are moving. So you're implying movement in a still image. Another image from Kelly here showing how a platypod can be used for portrait photography. So this is done by famous portrait photographer and a sports fitness photographer, Ian Spanier, where he has his platypod mounted on a rock, shooting images of his model here, and another one here of a country western singer. I'm sorry, the name escapes me here. And this is the image I showed you before from Rick Salmon. Our friend Dave Williams. So here, Dave does his own version of landscape self-portraiture, where he took a small camera, set it off about 50 meters away, focused it on this outcropping of rocks, then went out into the scene. And I think he used a remote to shoot some pictures of himself. Here I'm just showing how Platypod can be used for lighting. This is actually in my own basement. I took a Platypod Ultra, screwed it into one of the ceiling rafters in the basement. I mounted a Manfrotto variable friction magic arm onto the Platypod. And I also put a hook onto it that had a 1/4-inch threaded end with a security cable, threaded that security cable because you don't want to take a chance with your light, although everything really is very secure here. I mounted that with my old monolight, very heavy unit, and a beauty dish with a diffusion sock on that beauty dish. I also used a eye light catcher underneath the model, who happens to be my wife in this image. And just to give you an idea, now this image, I have to tell you, came out of the camera in RAW, was converted in Lightroom to JPEG with absolutely no adjustments whatsoever, no color correction, because I already had I had color adjusted in camera using an old Expo disc, and I believe in using light metering. I had a Sekonic flash meter that this was metered with. This is exactly the way it came out of the camera, with the only exception being that it was converted to JPEG using this setup. And it's really nice. What's special about this is you can do what's known as clamshell or butterfly lighting without having a light stand in the image and without having to use a boom and a heavy counterweight to suspend your beauty dish and your monolight above. Toy photographer Mitchell Wu. Mitchell is a very well-paid toy photographer. He works for big companies such as Hasbro and Disney, taking images with action of his toys. He'll put in sparklers, he'll have fire, he'll have firecrackers going off. Here he's using a plumber's pressure blaster to blow dust around his subject, which is Kermit the Frog. And there's the kind of image that he gets. I would encourage people to look at Mitchell Wu's YouTube channels. He has some very, very interesting teaching tutorials if you're interested in toy photography. This is one of my images from travel. Just if you're at a nice restaurant and you have some beautiful food, take a picture of it. It adds to your travel scrapbook to show the food in the places that you travel to. And this was just lit off the top of a building with a spotlight coming from the building. I had this set to an f-stop, I think it was 1.8 according to the EXIF data, and I was able to get this beautiful bokeh of the lights in the background to make this just a pretty picture. Other food photography set of Valentina Cordero shows a very nice high-key image of this pasta salad. Talk about Don Komarechka. There's another photographer that people should really look into, and I'm going to do Don a little favor here because he really deserves it. If you have not seen this book, gentlemen, I'm going to suggest to you, I think the best place to purchase this is B&H Photo in New York, because they have a very good price and they will ship anywhere in the world. Don just released this book about 2 or 3 months ago called Macro Photography, The Universe at Our Feet. And everyone who is interested in close-up photography, macro photography, he does snowflakes in here, water droplet photography, and shows you all his tricks as to how he gets these magnificent images. This is fluorescent droplet photography. I won't go into much detail, but Don was kind enough to supply us with some beautiful images, such as this water droplet image, showing in the droplets this flower that was just placed behind these tiny little sprigs. Don also did some food photography for us as a favor to me, and I was wondering, what did he do? Did he put a glass spoon in the photo and get these blueberries on the bottom? What did he do here? So I looked at the next picture he sent me, and he had blueberries underneath the shiny spoon, giving you that beautiful reflection. And this background, which just looks magnificent, is just a bunch of purple crepe paper in the background. He has it lit with flashlights that are mounted on a platypod. And on one side, the diffuser that he used for his flashlight is none other than a paper towel, just to break up the light. So again, use your imagination. There is so much you can do, and you can just suspend this towel from one of our super mini clamps. This was I just took my own attempt at food photography, taking some of my wife's cookies that she had prepared for our grandchildren and lit them, showing the very soft light that you could do just with a simple setup like this. So the camera's on a table, close up. I think I used a 35 millimeter lens that was able to go to a 1:2 ratio. I have the light reflected off a card as the main light, which is coming from behind the food. And I would encourage you, if you're doing food photography, light from behind, the depth that you will get is amazing, but you may need to kick back a little bit of light into the food. So there, I just took a small acrylic mirror mounted on a crab clamp, attached with a gooseneck onto the same platypod that's holding the camera. And there you have a simple one light setup that just gives you this beautiful soft light, and everything is filled in so nicely, and you have such nice depth in the picture. Here's another image that Hilmar did, showing how you can get into very tight spaces using a platypod. Oh, there's Rick's picture again. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to have a repeat. And this fellow, Russell Klimas, does a lot of light painting photography. Here he has his camera on a platypod screwed into his ceiling, I think it was screwed in. You could strap it into something from overhead, and then he has a long exposure done in one image. He has a flash that's set off either during that image or in a second double exposure, and he's dragging a light wand around the model to get this shot. And close up with another image from Dave Williams, where he has his platypod strapped onto a railing and gets this lovely shot. I don't know if it was Norway. I don't have the location on here. I'm sure Dave could tell you where that's from. So I hope you enjoyed that little presentation to give you an idea of what we can do.
You know, aside from every single one of those images being absolutely incredible, what strikes me is the versatility of the Platypod. It is just unreal with its versatility. That being said, there are a handful of the setup shots that we saw there which could easily have been done with a tripod as well. But that's not the point here. The point here is pure convenience for those shots, and that man, the difference between carrying a tripod around on your back in your bag versus taking a Platypod or the Ultra or the Max is just man. I can't describe how convenient that is.
Especially also, to see it in the context of macro photography, for example.
Yeah.
I've seen Don Konrachka's work before, and it's always baffled me as to how he does what he does. It's just absolutely mind blowing. I've come across the book that you mentioned before as well. I just highly recommend for people to pick that up. We'll put in the description as well. That's one phenomenal book.
Hey, it's my birthday coming up in a month.
It is as well. It's saying you don't want anything Star Wars related. Is that what you're saying?
No. I would like a Platypod, Platyball, and that book, please.
All right then. Well, we have Eric Kuna on the show in a week or so. So that should be interesting.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we'll talk to him about that as well. So absolutely fantastic.
Have him bring a bunch of photos too, because his images are just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's just interesting to have a rocket photographer on the show as well. That's just something I never thought I'd say.
No.
No.
Well, he does. What he does is so different. I mean, some of his close-up images where you actually see the fumes coming out of the bottom of the rocket, looking almost like glass. I mean, there's so much art in the images that he does. In views that I've been following the American space program since I was a child. I'd never seen images like that before. So Eric is extremely creative in what he does.
I saw him talk about one of his images, or several of his images. I believe it was. It's probably on the grid. I can't be sure. Right. I remember one image. It was basically you'd see a whole lot of smoke and some of the afterburner and some clouds, and they were all lit in different colors, and he could pinpoint exactly, he went like, well, this part, that's nautical twilight, and this one is just regular twilight, and you could go, whoa, okay, my mind's already blown.
He's become quite the expert. Listen, he's been doing this for several years now, and you start, I'm sure you have a lot of beginners and amateurs in the audience, as well as seasoned professionals, and when you begin, you don't really know everything about the subject. But look at what other people are doing. Learn the techniques and practice, and you're going to come out taking some beautiful images too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, now there's another product that also blew both of our minds actually when we got our hands onto that for the first time, and that's the Platyball. Now, that's a tripod head. Like, I have never seen a tripod head before.
Do you know what made me most laugh is when Dave showed it to us and goes, can you see what's different about it? And we both just stumped for a little while. And then he told us, and he goes, oh my God.
Yeah.
He's so right.
So give us a description of what the Platyball is.
Okay,
because
so let's talk about it. I find the best way to discuss this is to answer the question, why did the world need a new tripod head? What was wrong with all the other hundreds of tripod heads, which are practically all the same? Why not just leave well enough alone? So I saw several issues. So let me take a tripod with a tripod head and just illustrate the problems and then how we went about solving those issues. I'm going to go to a wider angle here so that everyone can see nicely. All right, can you see that?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So what I've done here is I've set up a tripod intentionally angled off axis. So you can see the center stem is off axis, but I've leveled the head. Now let's put a hefty camera and lens on here. And this, by the way, is a very fine tripod head. This tripod head from Really Right Stuff runs about $500 in the United States. I can't imagine what it costs in Europe, but very fine head. I will not say one bad thing about it, but there are issues that are inherent to almost any tripod head. So let's attach a camera on here. Okay. Would you gentlemen agree that this is basically level?
Pretty much.
Yeah, give or take.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the issue here is, okay, now you've got your tripod level and you're panning back and forth in the scene, or maybe you're doing a panoramic image. Let me get here where I can see everyone. Okay, maybe you're doing a panoramic image. Now you go to pan, and what happens? Everything goes off axis.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the tripod legs are not perfectly leveled, and again, here it is exaggerated, but it is an issue, even if it is a little bit off level. When you go to pan, you're going to be panning at an angle because the panning head is at the bottom of the ball head. That's problem number one. Problem number two, let's put this down here. Problem number two is when you are looking to manage the controls. Now, this one's a little bit easier than some tripod heads, but I've got here 3 knobs. Okay, the master knob's easy enough to find, but which one controls the tension? Which one controls the panning? You end up fumbling, and on most tripod heads, all 3 knobs are just about the same size, so you don't know which way you're going with that. The other issue with having these protruding knobs is when you go to pack this in your camera bag, you're going to end up possibly cracking another piece of equipment, such as a flash or strobe, or any plastic object that's inside. So the protruding knobs are another issue. One more issue over here, and that is trying to get this level. If you notice, the bubble level over here is right on top. Now that is almost always obscured by your camera. Or if it's this way, by
almost
this way,
always,
you need to be able to look straight on top over here. So it's almost always obscured like that. Or you cannot see it at nighttime, or your tripod is way up and you cannot be able to look straight down. Mm-hmm. So these bubble levels are usually useless. Mm-hmm. So we've taken all of these different issues and tried to solve it with one solution. So enter the Platyball. We have 2 models. One is called Ergo and one's called Elite. For simplicity, we'll start with Ergo, and then we'll just show what happens with Elite. So first of all, you'll notice that we have gotten rid of all knobs. This is operated with buttons and with rotating levers here. So let's show you how this works. First of all, it has the same 3/8 inch socket as every tripod head, and this is lined with stainless steel so that it goes on. You just have to get it to catch the threading, and then it just spins right on very, very easily. Okay. To loosen the ball head, you pump the bottom button. To tighten the ball head, you pump the upper button. Can everyone see that? Mm-hmm. And then you get it to a tension where you can move it a little bit, but it won't just fall over. I'm just going to take off the Arca disc from there. Okay. And then we now attach our camera. Now, the Arca compatible clamp on top is operated with this rotating collar with a safety button on it. And if everybody wants to know how that works, just go to platyball.com, and we have some instructional videos that show you exactly how to use that. And please, if anyone here has ordered one, is going to be getting them in the next few months, please do view those teaching videos. This is very, very different from anything you've used before. So you put on your camera, you tighten it up, and now let's do the same experiment. I think we'll agree this is fairly level. Now, when I go to pan, I'm panning level. And this tripod is also very far off axis. Now, if I want to get it super tight, then I squeeze really hard, and this will hold. We've got this rated to 22 pounds, which means, because there are no standards, I think you might agree to this, there are no standards in the industry for how to rate ball heads. The way we rate it is by mounting the tripod head horizontal to the ground, and then we hang a heavy object off of this collar. We were able to hang about 40 pounds off of it without it moving.
Wow.
If you look at it in different ways and press on your camera, you may say, Larry, you were wrong on that. but this is the way that we rated it, and we find it's able to handle heavy-duty equipment like this. So now the way that I like to use this is I get this to attention where I can just move it a little bit. Here, let's do it a little more. Move it a little bit, but it still holds position. And this way, I really don't even have to play with the buttons once I'm shooting. I just position it where I want, and it stays. To lock the panning head, you just simply turn this knob over here. So we've solved the issue of having knobs that are protruding. We've solved the issue of having panning where you have to level your tripod legs first. Here, you totally don't have to level the tripod legs at all. You just have to level the top. And if you either are leveling just by, using your eye to look through the viewfinder, or you have a level in the back of your camera on the monitor, then you're good to go with that. In some situations, the monitor is not that visible, or you lose the ability on some of the cameras to do focusing while you have your level showing. So we have another model of Platyball, and I'm going to go to a different view so that we can demonstrate that. And that is the Platyball Elite. Give me one moment here.
One thing that's probably worth mentioning for those who can't see the video right now is that the reason that panning works is because the ball part of the head is the other way around to every other ball head mount out there, right? And if you just need to kind of picture that in your mind for a second to understand why that works, and then also ask yourself the question, why the hell hasn't anyone done this before?
Yeah.
I won't say it's never been done before, but there are very few models that have this, what we call the upside down design, which I think had they done it properly, it would have been the right side up design and everybody else would have been upside down. So Platyball Elite, Platyball Elite. And if I could describe this for your viewers on audio, you're missing something magnificent. That is the beautiful red color of this. We call this Hilmar Smith red because it was inspired by an ad that Hilmar Smith once made for us. And it's right. It's a gorgeous gentlemen. We were at a photography show and we had the Ergo and the Elite lined up next to each other. And what we found was that that women came by and they would look and go, "Oh, that's nice." The men would come by and they would want to hold it and touch it and everything. It was a very odd phenomenon that we noticed. But it's a very sexy red color here. We use an automotive style paint, which really feels very good in the hand. And I'm happy to say we have not had any issues with it shipping. It does ship together with a neoprene jacket that will enclose this, and it just hangs off to the side. Sorry, I don't have that right now on the table, but it will. That is packed together in the box with it. So what's different about the Elite? Well, all the mechanicals are exactly the same, but we added on a small electronic module to the back, which is detached internally from the rest of it. So this is not an electrical ball head. This is a mechanical ball head. And if a battery fails in the leveling device, the rest of it will still work. But look what happens here. And I think you can see that on the monitor now. Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to turn this on. And now you have the world's first LED indicator for leveling. And all you really need to do, let me put this on a Platypod so it's a little easier. Okay. All you really need to do is just move it left, right, up, down, until you get all 4 arrows lit up. And now it is level. Sorry, the table is shaking a little bit, but that is now perfectly level. It's also calibratable so that you can press this button on the right for 6 seconds and you can get it to calibrate to another bubble level or your camera, wherever you like. You hold it for 12 seconds, and it will reset to factory calibration. It has 3 brightness levels. This is very bright. You have no problem seeing this in sunlight. We have over 30 very bright LEDs that are built into here. And it goes very dim for nighttime use. And medium level, which is where I recommend it. The battery is very easy to use. You don't have to keep it plugged in. This is not rechargeable. It doesn't really need to be. It has this little battery known as an A23 type battery. Can you see that there? And these are used commonly here for garage door openers and remotes. I buy them in bulk for about 50 cents a piece. You can get them in a hardware store or even some of the drug stores, pharmacies for about $1 or $2. I would keep one spare one on hand. But these in my hands have lasted me several months at a time. If you're using them very, very intensely, it might be a week or two. So always carry a spare one with you. But the nice thing about this is you can see it from any angle, and it also changes orientation in 6 different directions. So if you run it upside down or flat or overhead, it will still work because it changes internally, changes its orientation once you get past about 45 degrees or so. I'm happy to say we're starting to ship these to our very early Kickstarter backers in late October. They are in full production right now. We expect our first 500 or so units before the end of October, and those will ship out to those who signed up for our first 24-hour backer deal. And then there will be another batch that's going to come in December, and we hope to have all of our over 2,000 crowdfunding backers, all those orders fulfilled by February or March, the very latest. We will start taking pre-orders from those who would wish to purchase sometime in January. And if you want to be notified of when that happens, because I don't know how soon we'll run out of stock, and right now there's issues with production in the Far East. So I would encourage anyone who wants to do this and has not backed us on the crowdfunding program to please go to our website now at platypod.com. When you sign on to the website, you will be offered to sign up for our monthly newsletter. We don't send out a lot of emails. It's really once a month, a very informative newsletter that will show the work of 3 different photographers. But that's where, through our email, that's where you'll be notified, number one, when this is released. And we're also planning, top secret, doing another Kickstarter for another product early next year. So that's where you'll hear about it too. So please sign up for our newsletter. We have over 10,000 people who have done so, and I think are very pleased with the information that they receive from that newsletter.
I think, when you combine the platypus, the platypus, I'm just thinking of the animal all the time. when you combine the platypod with the Platyball, then you really have like this really incredibly flexible system that'll allow you to be incredibly creative with that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
That's that's. I wanted to ask you, Larry.
Yes.
What is the process like from having the idea to actually having the final, product in your hands? That to me seems like really quite a complicated process.
So it's an excellent question. And if you have any entrepreneurs out there who are interested in this, number one, it depends as far as timing is concerned. It depends on the product. Something like the gooseneck, I saw other goosenecks on the market that were male to male. I purchased some and I said, something's wrong with this because you cannot stack them to each other. And they were rather expensive too. We have a much better price on this than a single male to male gooseneck. So these were simple. I arranged with my manufacturer. He purchased the materials necessary. We do machine the ends of these ourselves and style them ourselves. And these were easy to do. In a matter of a few months, I was able to do a gooseneck. Platypod is also mechanically rather simple, although I would say it takes, for a little one like this, it takes about 15 minutes in a computerized milling machine to produce just the shape for one of these. And then the bolt has to be placed in, welded, polished. I've actually visited the factory, and then it's anodized, very, very carefully made. People have said, oh, it's a piece of metal with a bolt in it. It's a lot more than that. And there's a lot of work that goes into this and quality control. And when you get this in your hands, you'll understand, why this is so special. So this could take about 9 months or so to produce something like this. Platyball is a totally different project. And this, I would say, has been a labor of love for almost 5 years.
Wow.
I have had mechanical engineers, industrial designers, electrical engineers involved. This is a much, much greater undertaking because we make everything. Every part in here is made specifically for Platyball, and there's about 80 or 90 parts in here, very solidly built. This is not a toy. You get this in your hands. I think you gentlemen have probably picked it up when Dave was testing it for us. And the other thing that we've done, which I think is so important, and I wonder how many companies are doing this, I'm less concerned about non-disclosure agreements than I am about quality of the product. And so we have sent our products out to many top name photographers and taken their advice and taken their input. We've had over 35 to 40 beta testers. Again, top level people like Scott Kelby, like Rick Salmon, and others take this into the field, try it out, give us their feedback. They found problems, and we dealt with problems and issues, and they have been corrected. And I think what is going out in the very first shipment is really a top quality, amazing, heavy duty product.
How many pre-production versions have there actually been? Once you feed back in, create a new version, so to speak, and so on.
That's a good question and a very sore question. Because when we first of all, we've had 3 Kickstarter programs so far. One for the Platypod Max, one for Platypod Ultra and our accessory kit, and another program now for the Platyball. On the first 2 programs, I prided myself in that we not only delivered on time, we delivered early, and that's pretty rare when it comes to Kickstarter. Platyball has been delayed almost a year, and the reason for that is we set a goal of having this good for 10 kilos. Again, 10 kilos or 22 pounds held off sideways like this so it wouldn't move. When we had our first prototypes, we were able only to handle about 5 to 7 kilos. And my engineer reassured me that he thought he could change some angles of some wedges and that we would be able to go. When we moved ahead, fully thinking that we would be able to release this even early. And one day he called me and he said, Larry, I could keep tweaking this and changing this until I get it to where you want it, but it could go through several iterations. I have a different design going from a horizontal worm gear to a vertical set of gears. And he said, my calculations are that we could get 3 to 4 times greater force by using that next design. That set us back a good 9 to 10 months. And then the pandemic has set us back a few more months because there was one point where the factory in Taiwan was nearly shut down because of COVID-19 within the factory. So we've had a series of issues going on. Our next time that we do a Kickstarter, we're going to have things already in production before we go to Kickstarter, and that will come out on time. So we're about a year delayed on this. It was a lot of embarrassment. I had a lot of excuses to answer to, 100% honest, but we have now a product which is absolutely superb. And I think the world will be very happy with what they see next year when this comes out. And again, I expect it to be in retail sometime in March of 2022.
That's amazing. I know you say there's, excuses to answer to and, embarrassment and that, but I don't see it that way at all. And I think people, they've backed it to begin with because they believe in the product and yourself. And I think people expect delays with things like this because you're telling them, right, it's going to be a bit of a delay, but the reason is this, and the reason is it's going to be this much better. I think people are okay with that.
just about any photographer, will attest to that. There's so many pieces of equipment that we purchase over our photographic, life, basically, where we think like, oh man, this is only like I bought this like a month ago and it's broken already, or this thing like isn't working, or or the quality on that isn't up to scratch. And it's really good to to talk to somebody who really puts all that care and attention into the quality of what they produce.
When was the last time you heard of someone creating a product with every aspect of it basically from scratch? That doesn't happen. That's very, very rare. Yeah. It's why you see take the bullhead as an example, why every other bullhead out there, that looks very familiar.
Yeah.
It's because it's all the same stuff. A lot of it is anyway. And I love that. It's been taken from the start.
I mean, the thing about tripod heads in general is, I had to, like my studio head that I use, predominantly for portraiture, I spent about 3 months learning how to use the damn thing.
I still can't remember which one does what.
Yeah, there's so many levers and like turn levers that it's.
I still get it wrong.
Are you guys interested in one more short demonstration of something that we're just starting to work with? If you'd like to see this, I'll be happy to share it with you.
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Is that an iPhone there?
All right. This is a product by LumaCube that we've just partnered with called the LumaCube Panel Pro. And let's set this down over here. I'm going to mount this on a platypod so that you can see. And it's a LED light panel, but what's really cool about it is it will do full RGB color. So if you want to use it for background lights, okay, there's the panel. And here is my iPhone with the LumaCube app on it. They also have little cube lights, which are not yet available on our website, but as soon as we are done with our clearance sale of the Lytro lights, we will be offering these. These are on their way in. So now I can turn on my light right from here. See that? Pretty bright. Let's take it down a little notch. And I can make it red or blue or green or any color in between. And it so easily mounts on a platypod. So now for product, toy, food photography, and even for vlogging and video work, this is a superb little light, and it gives a very nice diffuse light. It also comes with a panel diffuser on there, so if you want to go a little bit softer. And from the very same app, I can run these little cube lights as well and regulate their brightness as well. So real bright. And these have a little filter holder, so I can snap on a diffuser onto that. It's magnetic. Or if I want to make these lights, which are not color adjustable, but let's say I want to warm up this light to a tungsten level, comes with a little tungsten filter as well to make it a little bit warmer as opposed to that. So that's just a little thing I thought I would show you. This is upcoming. Within the next few weeks, these should be available on the Platypod website. I like good products from other companies as well that go very nicely with our products.
I have.
Were you able? I'm sorry. You know what? I had the wrong camera on. I don't think you could see the app. Let me do that. Here again. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm. Oh, there we go. Yep.
So again, turn that on. And plus, this can be operated right from the back of the unit also, which has a control panel on here and buttons as well. Sorry that I missed that the first time with you. But okay, there's red, blue, green, and a full color wheel that lets you adjust that any color in between.
So Larry, I use similar lights like that made by Aperture.
Yes, Aperture also makes a very fine very fine group of lights.
Very, very, they're very, very small. They're actually too small, probably. I'd like them a little bit bigger, which this panel is. So one of the big, so they're very similar in that respect. But one thing I wanted to ask is what the battery life was like on that panel, because I get frustrated with my aperture ones. If I'm honest,
between I think 1 and 90%. I'll show you the back of the panel so you can see. Okay, and I think at 90% it reads. At 100% it's reading 1 hour 6 minutes. It shows you the life, and if I drop that down to 90, I think it's gonna in another minute or so it'll say about 2 hours. So you've got a pretty decent life, but you can also, and I often do this, you can also plug it into a USB-C port right here, and it'll go for hours and hours and hours if you have it plugged in. So sometimes I'll have a separate battery pack if I'm really going to be doing a long product shoot.
Yeah. And you know what I hate about those the aperture ones is that the battery, all after just a handful of uses, doesn't fully charge anymore.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's shocking, isn't it?
No, these have been very good. I've been using it for a while, and this to give you an idea of the size of this, it's about the same size as my iPhone.
Yeah, they're a really good size. That they're a more practical size for me than the small aperture ones, which are probably half the size of that.
You know, I saw the Luma Cube stand at the photography
show. Yeah.
So we've just come back from the photography show in Birmingham, which is the biggest trade show over here in the UK.
How many people showed up at the show, considering coronavirus and all that?
Well, so in comparison, so this was the first time in 2.5 years that the show was back, live face to face, and so overall it was a little bit smaller. So some of the big manufacturers weren't there. Although that being said, of course, all the big brands were there, with the exception of Panasonic. That was probably the biggest surprise. But everybody else was there. Sony was there. Canon, of course, Nikon, Olympus, Fuji, and loads of other manufacturers. And so it was probably it was a little bit smaller. And in terms of footfall, it was probably, in previous years, it was pretty much shoulder to shoulder. So it wasn't quite as busy. But that being said, it was probably one of the best shows I've ever experienced. And for the simple reason that because it wasn't totally packed out, people just had more time to talk to one another.
It was nice. Wasn't it?
And the atmosphere was brilliant. It was, everybody was so happy to finally be back, face to face. It was so friendly. We had some great experiences. We had the chance to speak to lots of manufacturers, and they gave us a lot of time. We met a lot of friends that we hadn't seen in a number of years, at least in real life, and that was a great, we met a lot of our previous guests who were there, and we were able to meet them face to face for the first time rather than just talking to them, via screen.
Excellent. I have to really consider possibly coming next year if possible. We weren't able to make it for this year, but would be a consideration.
That'd be amazing.
I've heard some very nice things about the show.
I think the the indicators are that I would guess that by next year it'll be back in its full glory.
Yeah.
It was just such a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
Overall,
I'd love for them to run the show over more days. That brings its own problems in itself, but limit the number of people that could attend on a given day.
Because
that I don't want to be shoulder to shoulder. It puts me off going. If you can't actually get to speak to the manufacturers and things like that.
Yeah, from what people have been telling us really in previous years, and it would have been like, especially at the big stands, like at, let's say, Canon, for example, or Nikon, whenever they have like Canon had the new R3 out, for instance, which of course was a big draw. And if you imagine if you stand like 10 people deep in order to get your hands onto a new product or to talk to somebody at the stand, then that's, that could be a little bit off-putting, but it wasn't like that this year. I was actually surprised that it was as busy as it was because you just didn't know, especially over here in the UK, with COVID and everything, it could have been empty, but it really wasn't. It was good and busy. Like I said, the atmosphere was fantastic. It was such a great way to connect with people and to network, and to see people and talk to people in the flesh.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention, by the way, if anyone in England who's within reach would like to see the Platypod equipment up close. Our exclusive dealer right now is in Leeds, and that's Dale Photographic in Leeds. We've been in very good contact for several years now with Stephen and Paul Ridsdale that run the shop. Nice family operation, and they will spend time with you. They'll show you the equipment. You can look at it, and that's a place where you can purchase it, immediately. Right now, you could order from us. There, shipping can take a while, especially in COVID times. Very hard to predict when things ship out, but that is a way that someone could directly purchase in Great Britain is through Dale Photographic.
I know that we have listeners in the Leeds area.
Yeah.
So remember, if you are in the Leeds area, go and hit. Just remind me of the name, Dale's Photographic.
Dale Photographic in Leeds. And please say hi to Stephen or Paul Ridsdale for me, and tell them where you heard about them from the podcast, for the Camera Shake podcast. And again, please remember that we have a promo code until the end of October 2021, which is Shake15, SHAKE, no space, 15. And it does. I don't think it matters whether you're uppercase or lowercase. Either way, you should be able to get that promo code.
Larry, it was an absolute education having you on the show. And of course, I just like to remind people that the Camera Shake podcast is in no way sponsored by Platypod. Although we can always talk about that, of course. But
one day, gentlemen,
when we first saw the Platypod and the Platyball, when we were filming Dave's episode, we were really so struck by how ingenious both of those products were.
Absolutely.
That we thought we have got to get you on the show and tell us more about those things, because from a professional photographer's point of view, these are products that will make your life easier if you're out there, shooting and and carrying equipment around. These are products that will really make a difference, and I think that's an important thing. So, Larry, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. Let me ask you: do you have a lot of viewers in Europe as well?
Yes. So so we find that our viewership it's actually, I'd say it's probably about 50-50 between the United States and the UK and Greater Europe, if you want to call that. So yeah.
Okay, because we are also available in Germany, but they ship throughout the EU. Enjoyyourcamera.com also has our equipment, and again available for more quick shipping if you're in Europe and you want to go through them.
Awesome.
Fantastic. We do have viewers in Germany. We have, one of the funnest things for us is on the audio version of our podcast. In the the
analytics,
the analytics part, there's a world map, and so we can see where people are listening to the show. And it's that's one of the greatest joys for us always, is to see where when we have somebody new pop up in a particular place where we know we haven't had any listens before. It's always great. So that's so I know that somebody in Berlin is listening. I know that somebody in Augsburg, I believe, is listening, because I saw that pop up on the map.
Tell all your friends then.
Yeah. But if you are listening to the show anywhere in Germany, then get in touch with us. It'd be fantastic to hear from you and see.
Well, truthfully, it's really I'm so happy and pleased to be able to be here, because today, with the disappearance of most photographic magazines in the United States, at least, it is so hard to get the word out about a new product. So having podcasters as yourselves help spread the word about new and interesting products, I think helps, especially small companies like ours, to really let people know and be informed about what we can do to offer you to enhance your own photographic capabilities.
I mean, this, both. I mean, especially the Platypod, for example, is such a great product for us. I mean, I can immediately I can see so many different ways that it will make my life easier. And I'm pretty sure that once we get our hands on one, then we will demonstrate the different ways that we'll be using it, and we'll be putting it through its paces for sure.
Fancy a drive to Leeds tomorrow?
I wish I could. I wish I could.
Yeah, such as when your tripod just doesn't work right before the show. You'll have
yes. Well, exactly. A very good example. That actually,
people shouldn't know that.
but that did happen. That did happen today.
Yeah.
Didn't say
we won't
anything.
name the brand. Yeah.
It's Italian.
Yes.
As I was saying.
It's Italian. Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for having me on the show. It was really such a pleasure and an honor to be here, and I hope that your audience will have enjoyed the presentation, not just being an infomercial, but really showing you some new ideas of things that you can do in your own photography.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry.
So this is it. We've come to the end of Camera Shake Podcast, episode 76, with Larry Tiefenbrunn as our special guest. Again, Larry, thank you so much for being on the show. And again, be reminded that if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, you can see our lovely faces in full Technicolor over on YouTube. In actual fact, with this episode in particular, make sure you head over to YouTube where you can see both the Platypod and the Platyball in their full glory. It really, really makes a difference.
Although I would be amazed if you got to the end of the audio version of this episode and not gone to YouTube to check these products out.
Absolutely.
You haven't, Tommy.
If you are listening to this in the car, Tommy, then make sure you head over to YouTube, but not whilst you're driving. That's not a good idea. Cool. Finally, let me just tell you that you could join the Camera Shake community. All you got to do is go over to camerashakepodcast.com, hit the little join the community button, and we will, of course, love you forever, and we won't bombard you with loads of newsletters and so forth. But if there's something new and exciting coming out for some behind the scenes and the like, then make sure you hit that up. Now, that being said, that was episode 76. We shall see you again next Thursday.